Hey there, folks. This is the Screen Watching Podcast. My name, as it's been all this time, it is Dan Barrett. I'll be joined by Simon Foster in just a moment. Big week on the show. Simon is taking a look at a rom-com I'm kind of excited to see. I've read the critical, not really raves, not really pans, but they've kind of made me even more interested. But it's called Materialists. It's playing in cinemas now. Simon's going to tell us what he thought. Me, I've been delving in the rom-com pool myself. It is a brand new binge TV series called Mixtape. It's 4 episodes. The first episode is available now. Quietly, it's pretty good, but we'll talk about why shortly. There's some other things we've been watching. There's going to be discussion about some dangerous animals. I presume that's a show. I don't think Simon's going to suddenly open a cage nearby and then, we watch him get devoured as, I don't know, his wife watches on. I'm not sure. Let's not ask questions. Video Heaven, that's something. I'm hoping to go there one day. Me, I've been watching some retro things, but spoiler alert, I'm not going to tell you what it is. You just have to watch through the podcast. Also, we're going to talk about a little trailer we watched on our iPhones in the week. Yeah, exciting times. Folks, this is Screen Watching. The podcast, it begins now.
This is not like TV, only better.
Television! Teacher, mother!
Secret lover.
What, that's it? That's your movie?
Well, I said that I had an idea for a movie.
Simon Foster, comrade, co-host. How goes it?
Thank you, Dan Barrett. It goes quite well. It's been a busy week of screen watching.
Did you notice the order? Comrade
Yeah,
and then co-host.
I know.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. That's
Reverse chronological order. Sorry. Yep.
Your communist leanings coming through in the podcast. Thanks, comrade. I've had a very busy week screen watching. I've gone from the plethora of cinema that's on at the Sydney Film Festival, and I've seen a couple of good movies there. Plethora, which I think is Latin for many. And yes, down to the very smallest screen in my household, the iPhone, which we're about to discuss in a minute.
Well, shall we just discuss that now?
Do that now, yes. You introduced this to me through the week, and I'd never seen this happen before. Give the listeners a bit of a rundown about what we're talking about.
Okay, so are you aware there's a company that manufactures telephones that fit in your hand, a hand phone, as you would find them called in Singapore. Mm-hmm. It's called Apple. Apple, they do a couple of other things. You may have come across them around the place. Yep. But they've started making some TV shows. They've got some movies out there. And they've got a big movie coming out soon starring one Bradley Pitt. It's called F1. It's about the F1 motor cars, and there's lots of vroom, vroom sort of stuff going on.
I thought this was about my wife, Fee. It's not. It's F1.
Yeah, no, you need to read that better.
I should do that. Good joke. Keep it in the podcast. Yes, so what happened with this trailer?
It wasn't bad. It's a better joke if you know, like, Fee. I don't know if it necessarily really works for people outside. But so during the week, Apple released this really cool trailer, which I'm sure is the same as the trailer playing in the cinemas, and people have already watched it on YouTube a bunch of times. But it's a haptic version of the trailer. So you can sit there and watch it on your phone, as Apple intended to see this film, and your phone will start vibrating, kind of like, it's haptics. That's right there on the idea of a haptic trailer.
Wait. You've used that word twice now, and I don't know what haptic is. What does that word mean? Okay,
so haptic, basically, it is it's a vibration that more or less reflects what you're watching on screen. So this is a fairly commonly used term these days amongst the young people, Simon, because a lot of video game controllers will have haptic feedback. So when you're playing a game, you'll feel the vibration as you're playing the game.
Or shot or running away from zombies or stuff like that.
Exactly. But they did this with the trailer. So like as the F1 cars are zooming along, like you're feeling your phone going cool stuff.
That's pretty amazing technology to be able to cue that with the trailer, with the phone. What if you're watching it on one of the other phone companies? What if it's a Samsung? What if it's one of the other ones?
Yeah, I don't know.
Don't know either. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so yeah, very cool. I thought I was getting a phone call. You sent it to me, and I pressed it, and then my phone started shaking, and I thought, I'm not going to wait to the end of this trailer to answer that. And all along, it was the haptic trailer, which is very cool. Not unlike the 4DX experience at the cinema, where you sit in the chair, and the chair shakes, and they spit in your face when someone's kissing, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I actually think I want to see F1 in a 4DX theater rather than like where I'll probably see it, which is on a big IMAX screen.
Yes, I think you're right. I think that should be a 4DX screening. I should point out the other week when I saw and almost immediately forgot Karate Kid Legends, that was on a 4DX chair. And so when there was kicking and punching, Again, I thought my phone was going off, but it was actually the chair moving and shaking in time with Jackie Chan and Ben Wang's kicking action. So that was there you go. Whatever helps the screen watching experience, I'm for mostly.
Now, speaking of the 4DX experience, the best way you can watch the new film playing in cinemas right now, Materialists, is in 4DX. Let's watch the trailer and Simon can explain why 4DX is the platform of choice he wants.
Hey, are you single? I'm a matchmaker. Give me a call if you want to meet somebody.
I deserve someone who fulfills all of my criteria.
Nothing over 20 BMI.
I don't want someone who likes cats.
I'm trying to settle.
I promise you're going to marry the love of your life.
How many marriages are you responsible for now, Lucy?
9. If the girl asks for a call, drink of water, with a salary over 500 grand, you deliver.
You're the matchmaker.
You want a drink?
Sure. Coke and beer.
Hey, buddy.
Hi, John.
Well, if I was going to watch this movie again, and I just might because I really loved it, 4DX may be just the way to go. Now, I find this really interesting because Materialist is the sort of film which we just don't see anymore. It's been sold. In fact, you've referred to it at the top of the podcast as a rom-com, a romantic comedy. And I sit here looking at the IMDb page, and right there at the top is the terms feel-good romance, romantic comedy. I have to point out, in the most stringent terms, that this is not a comedy. This is an old-fashioned romantic drama. It's written and directed by Celine Song, who a couple of years ago made the utterly beautiful Past Lives. And almost single-handedly, she is trying to bring back this mature romantic drama that doesn't rely on cutesy moments or fun bits, but is actually about real-life emotions, real-life dialogue, real people, yes, interacting in only the way that three gorgeous movie stars can, but also finding a really pure heart and pure piece of storytelling that deals with emotions. Let me run over quickly the plot for you before I effuse about this even further. Dakota Johnson, who I totally adore, she plays this New York City matchmaker who finds herself suddenly in a bit of a mess when she meets the very handsome, very eligible Pedro Pascal, but at the same time, even at the same event, stumbles into the circle of her ex-lover, played by the very handsome Chris Evans, who's a down on his luck actor schlubbing around as a waiter, but who at one point they were very much in love with each other. So she's torn between this very handsome, very rich, very well-to-do Pedro Pascal, or the not so in any way that way Chris Evans. All the while, her matchmaking endeavours start to stumble a bit, start to fall apart. She goes from being the company's leading matchmaker to stumbling into a terrible assault case when one of her paired-up partners assaults a young woman who's played by the wonderful Zoe Winter. There are scenes in this movie with Zoe Winter and Dakota Johnson that just had me, even a crusty old critic like me, absolutely bawling. And what unfolds is this young woman trying to very much understand herself and what love is while having these two very sort of alpha male influences in her life. I didn't expect to love this as much as I did. As much as I love Past Lives, it seemed very much like a lightning in a bottle sort of film for me. But what Celine Song does with this is take the most tiny, the most intimate moments and just make them very real and very sweet. And I can't believe... I realised at one point, it's one of those movies where you're sort of watching, and then you realise, oh my God, I don't think I've blinked for like 15 minutes. I'm just staring at these actors sort of speak these wonderful lines in this beautiful, very cinematic but not overly contrived kind of setting. It's a very sort of cinematic New York, but not in the way that a big sweeping romantic comedy might do it. The music's beautiful, and the three actors are terrific. So I'm really surprised at how much I loved it. Maybe because I went into it not expecting to be so affected, and I was deeply affected.
Yeah. Obviously, based on Celine making the film, this is very much something I'm pretty keen to check out.
Yeah, yeah, and although it's sort of front and centre of the poster and all the marketing material of these three gorgeous people, they are giving very human performances. A lot of the veneer of their movie stardom has been stripped away in these characters, and although a New York City matchmaker, that sounds very much like a contrivance and a movie moment, but Dakota Johnson gives this just such a real human touch. I absolutely love this film. I saw this by myself, and I can't wait to take the aforementioned wife along to watch this because I think she'll respond really well to it. Celine Song's really flying the flag for romantic dramas like no one else is, and I'm really hopeful she'll bring them back to the big screen.
Now, you obviously had quite the reaction to this movie. What happens if your wife doesn't feel the same way?
Well,
is that maybe the end?
Yeah.
Yeah, fair.
The joint bank account's going to be closed. She'll have moved out by the evening.
Yeah, it's like last night on the couch, I was trying to tell my wife about Billy Drago, obviously from The Untouchables, the man in the white suit.
Yeah.
And she just wasn't interested in the conversation at all, and I was just packing my suitcase.
Why are you even with us still?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, if the house is empty by the time she gets back, it's on her.
God bless him. No, we couldn't go through life without him. Shout out to the wives. And I think, I don't want to say this is a chick flick because that sort of puts it in its own basket. This is just a beautiful drama that everyone can and should see who has some sort of inkling as to what real love is.
Yeah. Simon, I can tell you what real love is.
Yeah.
But maybe after the podcast.
Stop sending me those websites.
I think we're seeing a movie together on the weekend, so maybe then we can really sort of figure it out. But look, Simon, I watched some TV, but I didn't watch TV at home. I left the house to watch television.
How do you even do that?
Oh, it's the life that I lead. But I went to a very busy bar in inner city Sydney where I got to watch the very first episode of Mixtape, which is streaming now on Binge. Let's have a watch of the trailer and we'll come back and I'll tell you about the show.
You never forget the boy who makes you your first mixtape.
Oh, come on, man. Sorry. One dance, and I'll walk you home.
One dance, but you won't be walking me home.
Hey! I know when you're shutting me out. Alison!
You don't just up and leave home at 17 and we'll ship it back. She's not coming back.
Okay, Simon, Mixtape. Basically, here's your deal. You got two kids in 1989 in Ireland. Teenagers, they are of an age where, a boy looks at a girl looks at a boy, and they start feeling that little special thing.
Sure.
Very meaningful experience in both of their lives. Also, we're watching them much later in life, as they're both in seemingly their early 50s, but we'll talk about that aspect in a moment. Later in life, they're not together anymore because, teenage love, like, often it's fleeting.
Yeah.
But clearly there's still some sort of a missed opportunity that's kind of rung in their hearts in the years since, because when the woman who now lives in Australia and not Ireland has been doing the rounds because she's now a published author, the news of her new book has made its way to Ireland, where the guy still is. And it's like, wait a second, I haven't heard that name in 30 years. And so he sends a little Facebook, hey, I'd like to say hi, kind of a message. She gets that, and this is kind of where it all starts to unravel in their lives.
Setting in motion those feelings that you had as a teenager, but in your more mature years. See, now that's a good romantic drama premise.
Exactly. Now, the mature way to handle that is that the two of them catch up after burning their current romantic lives, only to realise that what happened as a teenager should stay as a teenager. Wow. But I haven't seen the following 3 episodes yet, so I can't actually say how this plays out. I suspect, though, it goes a bit more down the love route. Gross. But what you've got here is a fairly charming drama. It's set... The teenage aspect of it is 1989. The two teens are very much into music. So the score, like the music of the late 80s, very much plays through their Walkmans and plays through the series as a whole. It is very much infused with that 1980s British, like,
that's my jam,
indie
baby.
Experience.
Oh,
yeah.
This is shaping up as my must-watch of the year.
Yeah. Your two leads, you got your Teresa Palmer, who's Australian. You got your Jim Sturgess, who's Irish.
Oh, really? I didn't know he was in it. He's terrific.
Yeah,
I
he
remember
is.
him from the what was the Across the Universe, the Beatles movie, and from 2012 with Dennis Quaid. He's made some better movies than that. But
I will say, when I looked at his bio the other day, handed out by the fine people at Binge, they were talking up Across the Universe and not so much 2012.
I am not a little bit surprised. No, Across the Universe was terrific. And he's a very likeable screen presence.
Yeah, he is. So, I think what you've got here is it's a romance. It's not a rom-com. Like, I can't remember if there was any funny moments at all through the first episode. This is firmly in emotions on your sleeve. You're just, you're feeling it in the same way that you feel the music.
That's really interesting that this week that we're both reviewing these romantic films that don't lean into the funny romantic comedy, but more sort of the romantic drama. Maybe there's a bit of a shift towards this.
Oh, maybe it's just a coincidence.
Maybe.
But as they say in the X-Files, if coincidences are just coincidences, why does it feel so contrived? But we'll talk about the X-Files in a moment, Simon.
Wow.
Right now, I just want to finish talking about Mixtape.
Yes, do that.
So you've got two leads, Sturgess and Palmer. Okay, both of them, I think, carry the screen quite well. I did find myself bristling a little bit with the Teresa Palmer character as an adult, which is when she plays her, so it's different actors when they're teens. Only because she's living this sort of life in Australia of someone with tremendous privilege. It feels very much sort of, Sydney, North Shore, getting around in linen sort of thing. Like, I just see a lot of that in Australian TV drama, and it just doesn't really reflect the sort of inner West Sydney and sort of outer Western Sydney that I've probably had a greater experience with around.
I feel exactly the same. I had a very similar reaction to one of the Sydney Film Festival movies this week, where I just these people are awful. They get everything their own way and they're whining about it. So, so I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, and I don't know, I find that incredibly off-putting, and those sorts of people just a bit off-putting. So, it's sort of, to me, it lost a little bit of humanity in that. And also, I kind of feel that these stories, which purport to sort of tell stories of, love lost, it's always amazing how the people who are reconnecting are always living sort of interesting, sort of creatively fulfilled lives. Whether that is, in this instance, an author and a music critic, and, I don't know. Come on, can't someone just be someone working in a store somewhere, or as an accountant, or, doing, conveyancing law?
All right, calm down.
It's the conveyancing law rom-com you've been waiting for, Simon.
Exactly, yeah, that's what we're all screaming out for, yeah.
Yeah, but look, I did get to see this at the Australian premiere, so I watched it in a room with all the people that worked on the show, including the stars of the series, and did that in a bar. It was very loud, and they gave me a drink that was blue. It was delicious. It was a good sort of experience to be able to watch this. But even so, while I feel I had this sort of experience, which is fairly unusual, and most people won't be seeing it in this way, I still think that people at home will find the drama will resonate fairly well with them. If anything, the intimacy of watching at home on your smaller TV or a handheld device would probably actually work for the series' strength.
Or just make yourself a blue drink and get into the whole party vibe of it. It's called Mixtape. Can you remember any of the music from it, or is that putting you on the spot?
Oh, look, it's got everything you want. In fact, hang on. When I was at the event, they gave me this fancy band t-shirt, which has the various bands on there. So The Cure, The Clash, Joy Division, Arctic Monkeys get played in there. So not all from, the late 80s. There's a bit of Velvet Underground. Stephanie Says is a major plot point in the first episode. Bit of David Bowie, you may have heard of him.
This is great. I've got to watch this.
Yeah.
Underground.
Just got to drop a little phrase in there. Psychedelic furs.
Oh, here we go.
Jesus and the Mary Chain. It's all there.
I'm going straight from this podcast to this show. Teresa Palmer and 80s music. I'm there, baby.
Indeed. Simon, do you want to tell us what else you've been watching?
I'll do that very quickly, yes. Dangerous Animals is the new movie from director Sean Byrne. I'm very excited about Dangerous Animals. A, because Sean Byrne made his film debut behind the camera with The Loved Ones, which was an Australian horror film from back in 2010, I want to say, maybe 2011. And it starred the amazing Robin McLeavy as a driller, a beautiful young woman with a drill fixation, and she did horrible things to Xander, what's-his-name's head. He followed that up with an American horror film called Devil's Candy with Ethan Embry and Pruitt Taylor Vince. And if you haven't seen that, you have to seek out Devil's Candy because it is a rip-roaring haunted house story. And he comes to us now with Dangerous Animals. I interviewed Sean through the week, and he was very clear that he was a director for hire on this one. He came very late to the production. Between him joining and the casting and the shooting, it all happened very quickly for him. I'd say that's probably a little bit to the film's detriment because he is a really stylish director, and this one isn't that stylish. It tells the story of a serial killer played by Jai Courtney who runs a shark cage tourism operation out of Queensland, out of the Gold Coast. He takes young couples out to the sharks and then films them being eaten, much to their chagrin. It's kind of repetitive. It's a little bit gross in places. It's nowhere near as psychologically deep or clever as his past works, but it does have some great shark footage and some beautiful shots of Queensland. Not surprisingly, Queensland Tourism were not involved in the production of this film. Video Heaven is the other one I want to talk about. Now, I'm breaking the rules of the podcast here a little bit because this is one of the movies I saw at the Sydney Film Festival. It hasn't got a local distributor yet, but I just want to let people know that there is a 3-hour film essay out there that looks at the role of video stores, movie rental stores in cinema. And this is a collage of footage of video rental stores throughout the history of film, obviously from the early 80s through to, well, I guess now they're still being featured, but only in a retro sense. And Maya Hawke, the lovely Maya Hawke, does a voiceover for this that puts it in perspective. What the video stores meant originally, how they were portrayed by cinema, how cinema may have been party to the downfall of the video rental store, leaning into some of the bad elements of it. In celebrating people like Quentin Tarantino, are we also sort of pointing them out as nerds, and maybe the customer experience wasn't great with some of those stores? The blockbusterization period for video stores. This all runs over 3 hours. It may be a bit of a slog for those of you who don't have the involvement with video stores that I did growing up, both as a customer and in the industry, but to me this was just heaven, video heaven, in fact.
Sorry, can you just explain this again for me? So it's clips from movies that have video store scenes in them, is that the idea?
Exactly,
or is it...
right, yeah.
Okay.
So over the course of 3 hours, the director Alex Ross Perry has taken how video stores in movies have progressed over the years, and how not only as a way of celebrating them just being in the movies, but also a way of saying, okay, so in the beginning they were portrayed as being this sort of magical place where romance was struck up, and showing all these clips from movies, and then it became kind of this is a really ugly place to go, and video store clerks are nerds. They have clips from Seinfeld and Friends in there as well. And then right to the end when they talk up the Will Smith film I Am Legend, where he has a very sad moment in a video store, which in real life was Tower Records in the middle of Manhattan, that closed down before I Am Legend was even released. And his point being that video stores are being captured on film at a point when they're already history. So it was a really fascinating story and a great documentary to watch. So I don't know if it's got an Australian distributor yet or where it'll be played. It's probably more a museum piece or an art house piece, but I'll keep everyone up to date with where Video Heaven is playing.
Surely it'll turn up on like Prime Video or something.
I'm absolutely positive it will, yeah.
Yeah, or Tubi.
What else have you been watching, Dan Barrett?
Well, look, I want to go and see Video Heaven right now. So just another quick question. Is it just American films that they focus on, or do they...
Well, they make Maya Hawke's narration in the film makes the point that it seems to be predominantly Hollywood films or American. They do everything from mainstream to underground to short films. They feature a lot of footage, but there's only a couple of international films, which kind of what it was at the time. I think there was a scene from Amelie in there. There's a couple of others, but yeah, no, it's a terrific film.
Yeah, I remember there was an Australian film called Angst, which was primarily set in a video store.
Yeah, they had the couple of very famous scenes from Muriel's wedding in there as well. So they certainly dug deep on, and Alex Ross Perry he was a clerk at the Kim's video store, which is one of the most famous New York stores, and he was part of the culture for many, many years as well. So as an ex-video store owner and an ex-video industry sales rep, and someone who's been around it and experienced right from sort of the early 80s through to its demise in the early 2000s, this was just heaven for me.
Yeah, but your store wasn't Kim's video.
No, mine was Simon's Video. No, it was called Carlingford Movie World, and we had very much a niche store. We were kind of like Kim's Video, and we just stocked everything from everywhere, and that was kind of our point of difference. We were right between a Video Easy and a Giant Civic Video, but we had all the arty stuff that they wouldn't stock, so we did okay for a while.
Look, before Simon starts crying, let's just quickly finish this out. What else have I been watching? Great question, Simon. This week, look, I've been moving house. I've been feeling unwell. It's just been this whole sort of week. So, what else are you going to do other than sit on the couch and watch a couple of old favourites? So, nightly, I've been watching episodes of Northern Exposure, followed by an episode of The X-Files, and having a grand old time, Simon.
That is a good night's viewing.
It is.
Now, the two X movies, Exposure and X-Files.
How about that? Can you just ask me why Northern Exposure? Look, don't ask the question. Let me just answer it. Starting in the last couple of weeks is a new podcast with series stars Janine Turner and Rob Morrow, and they're going back looking at Northern Exposure episode by episode. Anyway, as a fan, that's got me a bit excited, so I thought I might watch a couple of episodes and then catch up on the podcast.
Nice. Janine Turner, she was so beautiful and she was lovely on the show, and she was great in Cliffhanger with Sly Stallone. Never went on to major things.
I think when you have such a distinctive haircut, and you never really change that during the sort of bright time that you are shining as a star, I think that you tend to get a bit pigeonholed and forgotten pretty quickly. You got to update these things.
Didn't hurt Jennifer Aniston.
What are you talking about? She got her haircut like a season in and then changed it up a bit after that. Like, she didn't have that same haircut for the entire run of Friends.
And you make the point, and it certainly hurt Felicity. But a lot of people talk about it being the end of Felicity after she got the cut.
Yeah, but I mean, take a look at our girl. She's still appearing in movies and TV shows like 20 years later.
Yeah. Two adult men here, people.
Yep. With the experience and knowledge to be able to have a informed conversation about women's hair.
Which of the X-Files episodes did you watch?
From the beginning, so I'm like 5 episodes in on both shows.
Nice. Oh, those early X-Files, man, that was such a revelation back in the day, wasn't it?
It was. I've watched a lot of X-Files in my time, and certainly what I've found while watching the run-through is not that the early season is hokey, which I mean it kind of is, but like it always was kind of a little bit hokey, but just I kind of think that the things that society sort of glommed onto just feel so transparent and obvious in like cultivating an audience around it. Like, I don't know how intentional it was. Like, I'm sure it's just kind of, surprise. But also, the sorts of conversations everyone had around, like, those early episodes. So, remember episode 3, which is Squeeze, which has Toombs, the guy that stretched his body to be able to do stuff. Like, everyone remembers that.
Toombs, yeah.
Yeah, like, that guy, like, he was seen as so creepy, and it was like this real sort of moment of talkability where, you could actually go to work or something, they say, did you see that thing with that guy that stretched? Like, that was incredible. And there was nothing really like that on TV at the time. But if you tried running a similar show today, like, it just kind of feels so hackneyed. Like, we've kind of seen this type of storytelling before, and, it just kind of feels... I used the phrase earlier, emotions on your sleeve, and it kind of seemed in a similar way. Like, everything was just out there on display with no subtlety.
The truth is out there, Dan.
I hear that, but also lies.
Wow. And on that note, what a way to end the podcast, ending on a big philosophical point like that. This podcast is forever evolving. It's organic, Dan.
Look, true. I mean, I wouldn't say it was so much philosophical as much as just stealing lines from later seasons of the X-Files. But, folks, this has been Screen Watching. My name, Dan Barrett, joined by Simon Foster. Simon, do you want to tell everyone where they can find you and then me?
Well, you can find us both at the Facebook page for Screen Watching, at Screen Watching Podcast, on the YouTube, at Screen Watching, where you really should be watching this, and drop us an email at screenwatchingpodcast@gmail.com. I do the Screen Space newsletter, which is available on the Substack. I'm just about to press publish on this week's one, which I'm very excited about. I wax lyrical about Celine's song and her romantic drama endeavours. And, of course, the Best Movie Year promo. Oh, Best Movie Year 1987. Don't say the word promo. And there'll be a new one of those up very soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, we just need to record one.
We've got a couple in the can,
Folks,
haven't we?
Actually, I think we do have one or two in a can. I've got to get those edited. Anyway.
Well, what do you do when you're not doing this? You've got some very exciting news to tell people.
Alwaysbewatching.com, hit the website, you can sign up to the newsletter, rise in your inbox, and, that happens. In my day job, I am the editor of Media Week, so if you're Australian and you want to keep up with media-related news and information, hit our website up at mediaweek.com.au, and, you'll find a few pieces from me. I had a interview today with the editor of the Australian Women's Weekly, and we talked about the Children's Birthday Cake Book, which, if you're a child of the 80s, you absolutely grew up with this book, and subsequent generations have.
Of course. And it has been spoken of through the week, a couple of big cancellations on Australian television with the project and Q&A going. I would also want to send a shout-out to The Back Page, the Foxtel sports show, which I've been watching for many years, which has also been given the axe. So, sorry, Tony, love your work, mate, but 3 shows in the toilet.
Yeah, big week. Anyway, folks, this has been Screen Watching. We'll be back next week with, more of this. Folks, we'll see you then.